Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Jerusalem, the quiet. Hi, everybody. You're listening to the Tamar, Yonah show here at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. We're going to be talking about what's happening here in Israel over the weekend and even some days before that. Jerusalem, the quiet. Is it really quiet? Well, there has been, if you've been watching the news, rioting in Jerusalem by the Arabs. Rockets on Israel in the south over the weekend. And we're going to be speaking with somebody today also about what it's like to live under rocket fire. And this is going to be a resident from the south of Israel that we're going to be having on the show today. And she's going to be telling us what it is like to live under red alert sirens with your family while you're working, when you're at home, when you're sleeping. And with all the non-quiet in Israel, as I said, rockets over the weekend, dozens of rockets, I should say, over the weekend on Israel. And the rioting in Jerusalem, there's even, I think that they're calling it the TikTok Intifada or something like that, where the Arabs are filming themselves beating up Jews and then posting it on TikTok. Now, let's not forget, it is the Ramadan, the Islamic holiday of the Ramadan now. And so we're going to find out also in this show, is this the reason that the Arabs are making even more trouble than usual now because of their Ramadan Islamic holiday? Or because what do you do on holidays? You want to kill Jews, right? If you're an Islamist, right? What is behind it all? Or is it more political? Or is it a mixture? We know that Iran has a bone to pick with Israel. They're very angry and they want to make as much trouble here as they can. We know that Turkey also wants to occupy Jerusalem and they're making problems for us. And they've always been supporting the Hamas. We know about Jordan, who used to occupy Jerusalem, and their sights on it as well. A lot to talk about on the show today. So don't go anywhere. Again, we're going to be speaking about these things. Plus, we'll be speaking with a resident of the south of Israel, and they're going to tell us what it's like to live under rocket fire. We'll be right back.
The return of the Jewish people to the land of Israel was prophesied in the Bible thousands of years ago and is coming true today. Shalom. Join me, Josh Wander, on Israel Unplugged. Listen in as we delve into the spiritual and physical aspects of the Jewish return to Zion. We'll discuss the biblically mandated, historic, and of course practical understandings of this incredible transition from exile to redemption. That's Israel Unplugged, every Monday on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
All right, we are back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I want to say hi to all of our listeners who are listening from all over the world. It's such a joy to see your country's flag. I don't know who you are, but I can see your flags, and it's just beautiful to see from all over the United States, Canada, Israel, of course, France, Brazil, Japan, Ireland, Australia, Sweden, Costa Rica. That's 10. I'm not going to read any more than the 10. It's wonderful to see you listening in from all over the world. All right. We're talking today about the unrest in Jerusalem with the Arabs rioting on the Ramadan holiday, beating up Jews, firing fireworks at Jewish homes and at the police as well. Rockets launched from Gaza into Jewish communities in the Gaza belt all the way up until Ashkelon. What is that like? We're going to be speaking to a resident in the next segment about what it's like to live under rocket attacks. So, who is behind this all? Well, let's first start out with what happened over the weekend. Gaza terrorists launched 36 rockets against Israel on Friday night. I want to go through this because I want 36 to stick in your head what it is like to get 1, 2, 3 rockets, 4 rockets, 5 rockets, 6 rockets launched at Israel, 7 rockets, 8 rockets, 9 rockets, 10 rockets, 11 and 12 and 13 and 14 and 15 and 16 rockets launched on the heads of Israelis, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, more rockets, 23, 24, all the way up to 36. 36 rockets launched against Israel on Friday night. Some of these rockets damaged a number of buildings and cars along the Jewish communities in the Gaza belt, which is located east of Gaza. These are usually farms and villages where Jews live, and the Arabs fire at these schools and towns and homes of civilians. And this rocket fire went all over the eastern border of Gaza, where they shot at Jews, and north of Gaza, where there are more Jewish communities. The Iron Dome missile defense system intercepted 6 rockets on Friday night that otherwise probably would have hit Jewish communities, and we would have seen, God forbid, casualties. On Saturday night, the Arabs decided to open up fire on Israel again, and the Arab terrorists launched more rockets at Israel, one of them intercepted by Israel to minimize any damage because, as I say, or as you need to understand that even if a rocket is intercepted in the air, okay, imagine it. A rocket is flying above the skies of Israel, and we shoot a special rocket or missile to hit that and explode it up in the air so it doesn't slam into someone's home or into a school or whatever. But that shrapnel, right, it has to go somewhere. And according to the laws of gravity, it's going down. And it's over the skies of Israel, which means that this shrapnel, pieces of this rocket or missile that they launched at Israel, is going to fall into the streets of a neighborhood or, again, through someone's roof. Or I think I saw one picture of one that fell into someone's empty swimming pool. So you can be killed by this shrapnel that is raining down on top of your heads. I want you to understand that. So on Saturday night, the Arab terrorists launched more rockets at Israel, with one interception by Israel to minimize the damage of that rocket. The Israeli fighter jets retaliated, hitting specified Hamas targets. Now, you may argue, and rightfully so, that why doesn't Israel stop this once and for all? Why doesn't Israel go in and take out the Hamas and go back in and take charge? But that's a whole other 20 shows. But let me just look at the short term, and a very quick bullet remark in that right now, Bibi does not want to open up any escalation with the terrorists because he is trying to make a coalition. We just had our 4th elections in 2 years, and Bibi doesn't want to open up more chances for people to criticize him. And then the Arabs, who he wanted to get in to support him and his coalition, he would lose them for sure. Right now he's lost them, but he doesn't want, you're a politician. You want to make everything a possibility so you can wheel and deal and move forward with your politics. So that's in the short of it. We do not have a government yet. Everyone's trying to take power, and they and so this is what's happening. Now, let me just read to you something that is, for me, a little upsetting, but not too upsetting because I already know about it. And that is an article from Arutz Sheva called Chief of Staff, IDF preparing for Gaza escalation. IDF Chief of Staff Aviv Kochavi meets local leaders, visits Gaza Division headquarters following launching of dozens of rockets. IDF Chief of Staff Aviv Kochavi held an operational assessment of the situation at the Gaza Division headquarters Sunday, following the launching of dozens of rockets at Israel from Gaza. In addition, the Chief of Staff met with the heads of the local authorities in Israel to discuss the latest developments. So he's talking with basically the mayors and the leaders of some of these Jewish communities who had the red alert sirens and had rockets aimed at them. Among other things, the Chief of Staff told the heads of the authorities, quote, "I would like to express to you my great appreciation for the leadership and resilience shown by the heads of the councils and the residents," unquote. What he's really saying here, folks, is thank you for being quiet and not screaming and yelling and rioting in the streets and demanding that we do something, or at least too publicly. Why? Because, as I said, Israel and the prime minister and the ruling elites don't want to see any escalation. He continues and says, in recent days, we have been dealing with incidents of violence in the Palestinian arena, they write, in several sectors, and we are working to restore stability and calm to the southern communities. Do you see what he's saying here? He's not saying we're going to put an end to this and we will not tolerate this violence. He's saying we're working to restore stability and calm to the southern communities. What does that mean, restoring calm? It means working both sides of the fence, trying to get the terrorists to take a breather and be quiet and not attack Israel, and at the same time trying to appease the Israeli Jewish mayors and heads of communities to keep them quiet as well. Because, again, as I said, it's not good for politics to escalate anything right now. He says here, at the same time, we are fully preparing for the possibility of escalation or expansion of hostilities and are preparing for it, Kochavi said. So basically, nothing, much of nothing. That's what's happening here. That Israel's going to swallow as much as it can in order to keep stability, to contain the terror against Israel. Now, we're not just talking about rockets on the south. We're also talking about the violence that we're seeing, not just in Jerusalem, which has been making the news, but also in Judea and Samaria. If you live in Judea and Samaria, the heartland of Israel, when you're driving home or leaving home, you are often attacked by Arab mobsters who are throwing rocks at your car while you're driving. And when I'm saying a rock, I'm not talking about something the size of a ping pong ball or even a tennis ball or even a baseball. I'm talking about bricks. Very, very dense rocks, the size of bricks or bigger, going at your car. Now, when you just imagine if you have a car that's sitting still and you throw a rock at it, it's a good chance it's going to break your window. But if you throw a rock at a car that's traveling towards you, the force of that rock hitting against a car that's moving towards it, you're talking possible death. And there are videos out there, I don't know, maybe you don't see them because many of them are reports in the Israeli media, which means it's in Hebrew. But you will see the size of these brick-sized rocks that they're throwing at these vehicles that have totally smashed through the front windshield when someone is driving. Some of them have killed children, babies who were in car seats because it went through the window and went right at the babies' heads. It has killed the drivers, or made the driver get into an accident and then killed the people inside the car. So we're talking about deadly terrorist attacks in Judea and Samaria. We're talking about deadly terrorist attacks in Jerusalem, where they're shooting fireworks at homes of people, and homes have windows, or at police officers or civilians who are on the streets with no protection. And again, are the police doing what needs to be done? Or are they treating this, trying in a sense of trying to contain things and make it as peaceful as possible? Because there are consequences to the government if we get into some type of bigger escalation. All right, we're going to be talking with somebody when we get back about what it's like to live under rocket fire, give us a first-hand account so we understand better when we hear a rocket that's launched at a community. What is it really like? And then afterwards, we're going to be speaking about these riots in Jerusalem and who's instigating them. Is it the Hamas? And if the Hamas, who's behind them? Because Hamas gets its money from other people. We'll be right back.
Hi, everyone. This is Andrea Siminto from Jerusalem, inviting you to drop everything and join me on my show, Pull Up a Chair. We'll visit this week's quirky stories, meet fabulous guests, and discover my Israel. Together, we'll laugh, shout, and explain the topics that make us say, hey, we've got to talk about that. So get comfortable and pull up a chair with me, Andrea Siminto, every Thursday on Israel News Talk Radio.
All right, we are back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. And as promised, I said we were going to be speaking with a resident of the South to explain to us and to tell you and share with you what it is really like to live under rocket fire. Our guest's name is Ortal, and she lives in the community or the city of Sderot, which is on the eastern northern border around Gaza. And Ortal, do we have you?
Yeah, I'm here.
Shalom, Ortal. So tell our listeners, they hear that there's a red alert siren. They hear that rockets were over Sderot or other places in Israel. But tell them what it's really like.
It's very scary. We don't have... I have a little boy, and he's very scared also, because you don't know when it's going to happen. You can't get out of the house. He's scared. I'm scared also when he's going to school. In Sderot, we have everywhere. We have a little, like, safe spots. That if there is a siren, he can go inside and be safe, because you can know when it's going to be an alarm.
Ortal, how much time do you have to look to be safe from the time that you hear the red alert siren? How much time do you have until the rocket falls?
I used to live in Ashkelon, and in Ashkelon it was less than 12 seconds before you hear the bomb. And then in here in Sderot, I think it's less than 12 seconds.
So you have 12 seconds from the time that you hear the red alert siren until you can run somewhere for safety.
Less than 10 seconds, that's for sure.
Wow. So what do? You send your child off to school. He's walking to school. There's a red alert siren. Does he know what to do?
Yeah, he does, because now he's older. Now he's 13, so he knows what to do. But we used to live in Ashkelon, and over there also we had a lot of bombs. And it's still scary. It's sad to say, but we're used to it in one hand. And in the other hand, it's very scary because you don't know when it's going to hit you. You can be in the shower, you can be shopping, you can be anywhere, and you have nothing to do. You can be on the road between the cities and nothing. Only you and God. That's it.
And so tell us about some of the attacks that you have been under.
How many?
You can say how many and what did you do?
Sorry, I can't.
Too many.
I was, I think, 4 times really next to the hit where the rocket fell. I can't count. Sorry.
Too many times, and 4 times that you were right near it. And so the times that you were right near it, what happened?
Panic, scared. Sometimes we don't have alarms, so you just hear the bomb or the whistle of the rocket. If you hear the whistle, then you know you're very close to the rocket. And you have nothing to do. Nothing. You're powerless. That's it. Nothing. You can't do anything. Just wait for the bomb, and that's it. Thank God we have the dome, but still, no, it's just like a band-aid. That's it. This is not a solution.
So what would you like to see the government do?
To hit them back. No country would allow it to happen. No one. And only here, it's okay because we have the dome, and if the rockets fail, the dome hit it, and that's it. And like I said, it's only like a plaster. I don't know how to say in English, but this is not a solution.
Band-Aid.
We need to hit them back and hit them hard, so they will know not to mess with us. Because I'm sorry, this is not a life.
What was it like before Israel gave up Gush Katif and brought in the Palestinian Authority to rule there?
I think only Sderot got hit before, and I didn't live here, so I don't know. I just heard from the news, like you do. But now they are closer to Ashkelon and Ashdod and even Rishon LeZion, and in the center of the country, they live in a bubble. They don't know what it is to live like it, to live here. So I don't know. It's scary.
They say
scary,
that a lot of
scary.
the children, when they're under rocket fire, they wet their bed. Even kids who learned not to wet their bed, they wet their bed at night. Have you experienced that or know about that?
My son, when it started, my son was very little. I think he was 1 year old or something. And whenever the siren went off, he used to lift his arms and cross them together and lift it so I can see him, so I can take him with me, so I won't forget him.
Wow.
And that's... He's still scared. Yeah, he didn't wet the bed. But why? Now I'm crying. It's scary for all the children.
Why are you crying?
They're both scared, so I know that the children are scared.
Why are you crying, Ortal?
Because I'm remembering my son when it started. How he used to lift his hands, so I would take him. Just like he's telling me, see me, I'm here, take me with you because we need to hide. And that's sad. Very sad. Sorry. That got me emotional a little bit.
Ortal, other people in Sderot where you live, they've been under rocket fire again for years. You've been under rocket fire for years, whether you lived in Sderot or in Ashkelon. What do they have to say about things?
I'm new in Sderot, so I don't know a lot of people, but even in Ashkelon, everyone is saying hit them hard and hit them back because we can't be silent. We can't pass it. I'm sorry. It doesn't make any sense that other country will hit country, or I don't know what they are, but it's not fair that they will hit us. And if we're going to hit them back, we need to send postcards, letting them know that we're going to attack. It's not making any sense.
Ortal,
they're not telling us when they're going to send a bomb at us. They just do, and I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Sorry.
Ortal, the government's response, or one of their responses to the rocket fire, has been to make stronger rooftops for the schools. So if a bomb hits a school, the roof can protect the kids still, and to make more bus stops. The people who are outside waiting for a bus, they have no place to run, to reinforce and make stronger those bus stops. Are you? How do you feel about that as an answer?
I don't think it's an answer. I think it's only a temporary solution. So a lot less people will get hurt. But still, this is not a solution. The solution is to make it stop, and that's it. Not to be safe, because we can be safe at our home, but not. It won't stop. It needs to be stopped. This is not a solution. If you're bleeding, you can take you put something to cover it from stop bleeding. But if you're sick, you need to find out what the disease is before you're taking care of it. And this is what they need to do.
Ortal, when you only have 10 seconds from the time that you hear the alarm that the bomb is going to reach your area, and you're sleeping, and your son is sleeping in another room, what do you do?
Nervous. We need to go very fast. The head is not thinking straight, because I have only one child, but I believe that a lot of families have more than one, and they need to take all of them to the safe place, and it's hard. It's hard. It's you can't even imagine it. It's chaos, and the heart is racing, and you just want it to stop. That's it.
So when you're sleeping and you hear the whoo, and the siren goes off, you just like automatically jump out of bed, run to your child's room, grab them, and run to the safe room in your house?
That's it, yeah. Sometimes if you're asleep very hard, then you think you're dreaming. Mm-hmm. And it's sad because you're dreaming of an alarm, so it doesn't make any sense. But still, you wake up and it's chaos to take everyone to the safe place,
and then people.
I have only one. I told you.
People can't go to bed. They can't go back to bed immediately either. You have to wait at least 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and you know that sometimes, most of the times, it's not just one rocket. So you're going to bed, and then you hear again the alarm, and you need to go back, and then again and again. Sometimes most of the times you get more than one bomb, or two or three, and you need to sleep in the safe place. That's it.
Ortal,
the whole family sleeps in the same place.
I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing what it's like, so our listeners can understand better what Israel is facing when it's being attacked by the Hamas and Gaza. Thank you so much for being with us, and God bless you.
Thank you, Tamar.
Keep safe, Ortal.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
When we get back, we'll be talking about the rioting in Jerusalem. Don't go anywhere.
Are you interested in transforming your life, drawing closer to the Creator, and uncovering the deeper meanings and hidden treasures in the Hebrew Bible?
Then join me, Rav Yitzhak Michelson,
And me, William Hall,
on the Science of Kabbalah, where we are seeking to narrow the gap between what we understand of our physical and spiritual worlds. So make sure to tune in every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Israel time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on Israel News Talk Radio.
Hello, I am Walter Bingham. If you want to hear the news behind the news and the true perspective on world affairs, then the Walter Bingham File is the program for you. We bring you interviews with the movers and shakers, political commentaries, and on-the-spot reports of events as they happen. All here every Tuesday, 4 p.m. Israel time, 9 a.m. Eastern time. And it's all archived on our website. Make it a date.
All right, we are back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. And the Arabs, is it because of the Ramadan holiday? Is it because of outside other nations' interest in Israel and Jerusalem and its occupation? Who is behind all of the unrest that we're seeing in Judea and Samaria, rock throwing in Jerusalem, with rock throwing and attacks on Jews and fireworks being shot at civilians, homes, and at policemen. And, of course, the dozens of rockets that were fired at Israel over the weekend. Someone is doing this. Someone is behind this, and we're going to try to find out who. Our guest is Dr. Mordechai Ben-Menachem. He's a researcher, former lecturer at Ben-Gurion University, and has authored over 80 books and 400 research papers on science, history, and more. He commentates on Mideastern world issues, and I'd like to welcome to the show Dr. Mordechai Ben-Menachem.
Thank you.
All right. There are always low burning fires and attacks against Jews by the Arabs who hate, or the Islamists who hate the Jews here in Israel. But now we're seeing a huge upsurge. It's also the Islamic holiday of Ramadan. Now, for anybody who doesn't know what Ramadan is, it's basically 30 days long. It's a month long, and the Arabs fast during the day, and then at night they have their big feast. They break their fast and they have a big feast, and then they go out and they attack Jews. Kind of like what the Christians used to do on Christmas and Easter, etc. They go and attack Jews in Europe. That's what Jewish people had pogroms by the Christians and the priests who would charge against the Jews, accusing us of spreading plagues. Just like the coronavirus, it was the Jews' fault, except these were different plagues, not the coronavirus, etc. So anyway, who is behind all of this now, Mordechai?
Well, we have to emphasize two things. First of all, there are various reports. Some people have been shouting that the Iranians are behind it. Some people have been shouting that the Jordanians are behind it. Most of the intelligence sources that I've been able to glean point towards a cooperation between Turkey and Jordan. Does that mean that the Iranians are not involved? No, clearly. When you're talking about rockets being fired from Gaza, that's more Iranian influence than Turkish. The Iranians are well embedded in Gaza. The Turks are not. The Turks are well embedded in Jerusalem. So we have to differentiate. If we're speaking specifically about Jerusalem, as you mentioned in your introduction, it's probably much less influenced by the Iranians, since they don't have any clear inroads into the Islamic population of Jerusalem. But the Turks and the Jordanians do. The Jordanians, particularly on the Temple Mount and in connection with the Temple Mount, and the Turks throughout the Jerusalem municipality and the Jerusalem area. For instance, if we go to a large Arab town just outside of Jerusalem, one can easily see from the road a Turkish mosque. And the architecture is different, so it's very clear to discern which is of Arabic architecture and which is of Turkish architecture. So the basic answer is that if we're talking about Jerusalem, it's Turkish and Jordanian. If we're talking about Gaza, it's primarily Iranian.
Okay, so explain to our listeners why Iran would want to stir up trouble here and why Turkey and Jordan would want to stir up trouble here.
Oh, well, those are three different questions, okay? Iran wants to stir up trouble because they stir up trouble all throughout the Middle East. Since the Iranian Revolution in 1979, their primary focus, and people still do not comprehend this, particularly the people in the present American administration, the primary focus of the Iranian regime has been and remains death to the United States, death to Israel. That's their primary focus. That's their raison d'etre. That's why they exist, according to them. So that's Iran. Anything they can do to cause trouble in Jerusalem, in Israel, to Israel, towards Israel, in the direction of Israel, they will do. They pay for it constantly. They have proxies like Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza. That's what the Iranians do. In terms of Turkey and Jordan, again, those are two separate issues. They're not combined. They're not united. Jordan is run by a Hashemite dynasty. Hashemites, to remind people who may have forgotten, these are the descendants of the former sheriff of Mecca, who was thrown out of Mecca by Ibn Saud, the progenitor of the present Saudi dynasty in Saudi Arabia. And the British, because they had nothing better to do, probably they took two of the sons and made one a king of created a country called Iraq, and the other one they made a king and created a country called at the time Transjordan. In other words, the other side of the Jordan River, and is now called Jordan. The one in Iraq, of course, were eliminated a long time ago, and the Hashemite dynasty in Jordan is still there. We must emphasize between 70 and 80% of the Jordanians believe the Hashemite dynasty is totally illegitimate and have been trying to overthrow them for decades, unsuccessfully, primarily because of American support of them. Mm-hmm. So when Americans tell you that their primary purpose in life is human rights and et cetera, please chuckle.
Okay, so it's important that our listeners know, again, just to repeat what you said, that Jordan is a made-up country. It was really Transjordan. If you looked at the map of, quote-unquote, the Palestine Mandate that was under British rule after World War I, they divvied up the Middle East and split it between Britain and France, and Britain took this area, France took Lebanon, Syria, et cetera, et cetera. That these were made-up countries. They put in their puppet governments by appeasing some of the tribal leaders. And till this day, their own residents that live there have been trying to oust these fake puppet kings or leaders, dictators, etc., since it started, correct?
Well, yes, since more than 100 years, since 1916. And that people talk about the civil war in Syria. That's what it's about. People talk about the civil war going on now for 4 decades, in Lebanon. That's what it's about. People talk about the problems, quote unquote, problems between the Israelis and the fake people called Palestinians. That's what it's about. This is all fomented by the British and the French foreign offices, the Sykes-Picot Agreement, and etc. Anyone can look up Sykes-Picot. It's a ridiculous travesty in terms of foreign relations between countries, and one can see in my book about European anti-Semitism, for instance, that the British signed more than 12 agreements during World War I. Each separate agreement disagreed with all of the other agreements. They have never, in 1,000 years, the British government, the English government, the English, whatever you want to call it, monarchy, parliament, whatever, has never, ever kept an agreement that they made with any foreign power, ever.
All right. And so Jordan is interested in making trouble because they used to occupy Jerusalem before the Six-Day War. They want it back, right?
No. That's not the right explanation.
Okay, so please tell our
Jordan
listeners.
is interested in causing trouble because that's their only hold upon the Temple Mount. They were given suzerainty, non-political suzerainty, so-called religious suzerainty over the Temple Mount, over the Al-Aqsa Mosque in 1967. That is the total sum of the Hashemite legitimacy to remain in power. If that's taken away from them, they're aware that they collapse immediately.
Then they're irrelevant, in other words, you're saying.
They're totally irrelevant, and Saudi Arabia would either take them over or it would become an independent Palestine finally, which is, of course, the optimal solution, because that would solve in the entirety of problems concerning the so-called Palestinians and Israelis.
Okay, and Turkey?
But America has continually prevented that from occurring.
And Turkey? Why? What's their interest?
Turkey's just looking for. Turkey is. They have this crazy man who thinks he thinks he wants to be the Sultan and revive the Ottoman Empire, and so they're active in Syria, they're active in Iraq, they're active in Lebanon, they're active in Libya, and they're active here in all of the former places they have they have large military contingents, and here they have just a lot of provocative agents that pay people to riot. And this is something that is known. It's not a conspiracy theory or something. We know it's been reported in legitimate newspapers, the few that exist, that the Turks pay people to riot. They get a salary to riot.
So what does Israel, in the last 30 seconds that we have, what does Israel need to do? How do we respond?
We are responding. There's nothing extraordinary that we can do to change these facts on the ground in the short term. These things need to be changed in the long term. Remember, demographically, Israel is far and above the healthiest demography, not only in the region but in the entire Western world.
Thank God.
The Arab population of Israel is in a state of imminent collapse, morally, demographically, religiously, and more than anything else, in terms of
Mordechai,
outbound.
we gotta go. Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Mordechai Ben-Menachem, and thank you all of you for being with us as well. You're listening to the Tamar Yonah Show here at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
If you're hearing this message, everyone else can too. Advertise with Israel News Talk Radio and get your message out to people. We'll build a personalized package for you. Contact advertising at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Hey, this is Jake in Anchorage, Alaska, and I love listening to all the super interesting interviews and up-to-date information on what's happening in Israel.
Hello, this is Anna King, originally from London, now living in Israel. And what can I say? Israel News Talk Radio is my cup of tea.
My name is Bhaskar. I'm from India, and I love listening because you get to know the truth and wonderful voices from this lovely country.
Mom!
Okay, wait a minute. Hi, this is Chava Dax, and I'm calling from the rolling hills of Ma'ale Adumim, just north of Jerusalem. I always listen to Israel News Talk Radio to get all the latest news and commentary and to keep me up to date every day.
This is Sarah Dax from Ma'ale Adumim, and I'm 12. I wish Israel News Talk Radio was boring so my mom wouldn't listen to it all the time. Mom!
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.